ولا يخاف عقباها. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And now, without further ado, Dr. Hassanain Walji, please join me in welcoming him with the loudest of salawats. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Surah Al-Fatiha. السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والحمد لله الذي جعلني من أمتي سيد المرسلين خاتم النبيين طه وياسين أحمد محمود أبو القاسم محمد ومن المحبين عترة الطاهرين لعنة الدائمين من الآن إلى يوم الدين لا أعدائهم أما بعد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات أولئك هم الخير البرية صلوات.
If you don't mind during your lecture, if you can remind them about that miscommunication for 7 p.m.
Sure.
In case
Inshallah.
any of them have received.
Thank you. Before I start with the translation of this ayah, some of you may have seen the announcements for Ashura Day, and we had the English lecture by mistake slotted at 7 o'clock tomorrow. It's not at 7, tomorrow evening, same time, same place at 9 o'clock, and not at 7 o'clock, inshallah. Just so that you make a note of that. And that'll be our last night together, so please be here, inshallah, we will conclude this. So the ayah that I started with, ayah number 7 of Surah Al-Bayyinah. Al-Bayyinah is to actually part. It's like parting the curtains. And it's a beautiful surah if you try and contemplate on it, the Al-Bayyinah, surah number 98. We are told that those who have faith and do righteous deeds, they are the best of creatures. So we have been given a definition as to who are the best of creatures. Two things. Amalus Saleh, for example, and Illa Lazina Amanu, faith and deeds. These are the two. If you follow them, then you are the best of creatures. And I will try and envelope that, and inshallah tonight is a night of mourning, it is the eve of Ashur, one of the most poignant and the saddest nights in our calendar. This was a night when the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam in their tents were doing zikr. We know that Imam Hussain al-Islam had asked for one more night so that people could do ibadah, and he was granted the one extra night to be able to. Perhaps there is some reflection that maybe he was also waiting for Hazrat Hur to have one more night to contemplate, to come and seek forgiveness, and this is actually what happened. So this is historical. But this is the night, they say that the voices of zikr, of remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were coming from the tents as if it was a buzzing of the bees. They were deeply, deeply entrenched into the last night of ibadah before they were to give their sacrifices. And this is certainly a sad night, and inshallah we will try and wrap this up and pay tribute to the Shuhada of Karbala. But we have to understand the essence of Karbala. We can lament, we can mourn, we can have all our rituals, but if these tears were not a tears of understanding, then we have shortchanged ourselves. And Muharram traditionally is a time for mourning, yes. But Muharram also is a Husseini university. This is the one opportunity that we get to learn from each other. And we must take every possible moment to see that we refresh our iman, we refresh our knowledge while we mourn, while we have the masaib, but we must also have the essence of what Karbala is. Because let's think about this. What does it take for 200 million or more, 260, depends who's counting, 260, 280, these are the numbers being given of the Shia population on this planet. But at least 200 million people around the world are inspired and enamored by a unique man who lives almost 1400 years ago. And we are humbled that we are part of that 200 million. You see there, those are the pictures that you see of those who wish to visit the shrine of Imam Ali Islam, whether it's or Ashura. I was fortunate enough to spend 2 years ago a whole of the Ashura in Karbala, and it was a wonderful, uplifting experience to actually be there. People go there for Arba'in. Some of you may have been there. The feeling that you get when you are there with those people, with the other Zawar who are there, is something that cannot be described. But we need to also understand that what is it that 1400 years on, his shrine, his graveside, is the largest peaceful gathering on this planet. Each year over 15 million people descend from all corners of the globe to join that pilgrimage, particularly over Arba'in, and do the Najaf to Karbala walk. It's an experience to be had. We've had non-Muslims go and do the thing. Right now I have a friend, a Christian friend, who's actually in Karbala right now. He's sending me pictures. He's talking to us on various experiences that he's having. And it's very spiritually uplifting. So this is not just Muslims. There are people who want to find out what is it. And when we look at it, picture if you will, why did he stand up? And we've been talking about this, and I'd like to summarize that the society that the Blessed Prophet had created, where he tilted the balance, where the tribal egos had gone away, there was an egalitarian society, Medina had a constitution, and things were working out. And then just 50 years after him, society had once again steeped into the same old tyranny and cruelty, just 50 years after the death of the Prophet. The injustice on a social level, suppression at the political level, rising racism in society once again, tribalism, racism. And in the midst of that tyranny, this man stands up, fearless man, and speaks against the ruler of the time, demanding justice, liberty, and freedom. And that is something that has inspired people from all over the world. He refuses to give an oath of allegiance, the bay'ah, because he said truth cannot unite with falsehood. Remember, he said, the likes of me cannot give bay'ah to the likes of him. He did not personalize it, that I am not giving bay'ah. misli la yubahiyu misla. That the likes of me, will not give the bay'ah to Yazid. The premise, and those of you who have studied logic, this is the logic. Premise 1, I am a manifestation of the truth. Yazid is the manifestation of falsehood. Manifestation of truth cannot unite with the manifestation of falsehood. Conclusion, hence I cannot agree to pay the oath of allegiance to him. Now if this is to be extrapolated, that when he said the likes of me, meaning all of us, because we all try to be like him. We all are his followers. He is our Imam. So if we were to say that he said the likes of me, then if we take that mantle upon ourselves, then we cannot also agree to pay allegiance, to cooperate where there is falsehood. And we need to stand up for it, at whatever the cost is. He goes in the society and says in the most explicit of terms that I am a reformer, our society has become corrupt, the ummah of my grandfather has become degenerate, and I have risen out to carry out reform, that I am a reformer. This is the central concept of the struggle of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in the clearest and the simplest terms, that you do not submit to falsehood. So, Mu'mineen, we are here during the Masaib, during these days we cry, and so we should. But we cry not only for the martyrdom of this champion of truth, but also for a world in which the good people are put down and the wicked prosper. This is a societal thing, that our hearts go out to those who have been oppressed. Every night, as I said before, after this session, I'm on a Zoom session for 1 hour on Islamic City, which is a national channel, and every night during Muharram, we discuss one marginalized, oppressed minority, and their representatives come and talk to us, and we have questions and we have conversations. It's on islamicity.com. Last night, we had the representatives, no, not the last night, the night before, we had the representative of the Uyghur people in China. The Uyghurs are 9 million. They are from the Turkic origin, and they are in the northwest part of China. The stories that were shared were jarring. I thought I would share with you. They have been persecuted just because they follow the Islamic faith. China does not like that. And they divided the people. They studied the people, and they said there are 3 groups. One group doesn't really care as to what faith they are. The other group is young, they can be molded. But then there is that one group of about 2 million or so out of the 9 million who are very religious, and they will not give up that religion for anything. Most of those have been killed. This is happening today. In this day and age, 2 million people have been killed. This is truly a devastating statistic. And they looked at it, that these are the people who will stand steadfast. They will not give up their prayers. They will not give up their ibadat. And they knew who these people are, and slowly and surely they liquidated most of them, so that the traces of Islam is removed from the society. Fortunately, there are people who are still left. They're carrying on what they're doing. But is it not the responsibility of the Muslim Ummah, with the petrodollars that we have, with all the resources that we have? Instead, do you know what's happening? And this is something that gave me a sleepless night when I heard. There is a roaring trade from China where the Uyghurs are being sent from camps to prisons, and from prisons to certain places in Dubai and elsewhere in the Arab world, where their organs are being traded and they are being bought by the rich sheikhs. Yes, my friends, this is one story of many that we hear, whether it is the Dalits of India, whether the issue is of Indian Muslims, whether it is the Rohingyas that we are going to be discussing tonight. Ironically, those same Chinese are now working with the Bangladesh government to resettle the Muslim Rohingyas. You know, in Urdu we say, Billi so chuhe kha ke haj ko chali. Meaning that they have done all the ills and now they are trying to help the Muslim Rohingyas because it's in their interest to trade with Bangladesh. Look at the geopolitics of this. We as Muslims hardly ever understand some of this. Our leadership and those who can do something about it are silent because of the economic imperative. Can you imagine the situation of the Indian Muslims if the Gulf countries were to issue one edict to say if India does not stop harassing Indian Muslims, we will deport all Indian workers out of the Gulf, this problem will be solved overnight. But they won't do it. Why? It's not a principled leadership. Why? Because now you're making a bay'ah with falsehood. Imam Hussein said no. You cannot make bay'ah with falsehood. So I say, wherever we can, whatever we can do, the relevance of our crying today is not just to come here and cry. Shorten your tears if they are only tears of history. I do not say do not cry. I say shorten your tears when they are tears of history. Let them flow when they are tears of the oppressed human beings. Each one of us can do something about it. Maybe you can take this message to whoever that you hear about the Uyghurs, for example, or the Rohingyas, or any other group. The way that the Dalits of India, these are what they were used to be called untouchables, that they were within the Hindu Varna, they were najis, they could not be touched, they could not touch it, they could not drink the water from the same tap. All this they are still continuing. As to the plight of the Dalits, these are not Muslims. It is our responsibility of those who follow Imam Hussein al-Islam. And you think these are big words, you know, each one of us can make a difference. Remember that lizard who was trying to put out the fire that Namrud put out for Nabi Ibrahim? Small sprinkles of water. And when the lizard was asked to say, you know, what difference is it going to make? Just like that old man that I related to, that what difference is going to make that you're removing and throwing the starfish back into the ocean? Well, the lizard would answer to say on the day of judgment, I will tell my maker, I tried. That's the least we can do, to try. And this is a question that Imam Hussein al-Islam asked himself, as to what do I do when I know that something is wrong? Do I keep quiet or do I speak up? Do I look the other way and hope that it will go away? And you know, today in schools, for example, bullying is a big issue. Muslim students sometimes have a hard time. Well, we have a way. We are able to at least speak freely in this country. I would not be able to say the things that I'm saying was I giving a lecture in India, for example, or many other Muslim countries. We have the opportunity. Should I look the other way and hope that it will go away? Am I willing to take action? Even if it could mean losing something or losing everything. How many of us have the courage? Imam Hussein al-Islam lost, in terms of physical loss, although it was not a loss, but we as humans consider the loss of life. He lost 72 of his companions. Tonight we remember baby Ali Asghar. His son Ali Asghar, he even lost a 6-month-old son. in this process, he was willing to give everything. These difficult questions constantly crop up in our lives, in every time, in every situation. They occupy our subconscious and they interrupt our thoughts. And then we let them go away. We get busy with something else and we move on. Question I ask you, now that we've gone through 9 days of refreshing ourselves, 9 days of spirituality, at what point would you take a stand? Maybe when your own rights were ignored, that's the time I might take a stand, because I am now being affected. Well, where is that empathy? That if you feel you must take a stand because you are being impacted, what about that empathy that somebody else is being impacted? I must take a stand. Maybe the rights of your family. How about your friend, your neighbor? How about your brethren in faith? And how about your equals in creation? Malik Ashtar was given instructions by Imam Ali al-Islam that when you go to Misr, when you go to Egypt, when you judge, judge fairly, because there you will find your brethren in faith, you mean fellow Muslims, and he said you're equals in creation. Treat them both with equal justice. This is our training. The real question is, how far would I go? We play these mental scenarios and we make our stand and say, yes, we must do this. And when we hear something like this, when we see something on TV, we get roused up for about an hour or 2 hours, and then we move on. When it comes down to doing something, it never quite plays out. So, the Urdu couplet describes this. Are we from the Kufis, or are we with Imam Hussain alayhi salam? The Urdu couplet is, Haqiqat-e abadi hai maqam-e shabbiri, badalte rehte andaz-e kufi wa shami. That there is the spirit of Shabbir, maqam-e shabbiri, which is an eternal truth, Haqiqat-e abadi. Badalte rehte hain andaz-e kufi wa shami. Then the spirit shown by the rulers of Kufa and Syria was always changing. They write letters to Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and when he comes, they are nowhere to be seen. Because of fear, political expediency, dishonesty, and they manipulate the truth, and the truth is always changing for them. The truth is relative. And when you have relative truth and relative morality, that society cannot be a consistent society. So, if we follow Imam Hussain alayhi salam, then let us not be like the Kufis. Let us not sit in the camp of Yazid. These are harsh words. I apologize for that. But unless we realize where our stand is, let us not sit in the camp of Yazid and cry upon Hussein. This would be the biggest hypocrisy. We must be in the camp of Hussein and we must cry in the camp of Hussein. And this is what Hazrat Hur did when he finally saw the light. That's what separates a lot of us, me included, from people like Martin Luther King, who campaigned for racial equality, Mahatma Gandhi, who sought civil liberties through peaceful protest. Even someone in our lifetime came out with what I call the weapons of mass instruction. It was a 15-year-old at that time, Malala, she's older now, who frightened the living daylights of the Taliban with her, what I call weapons of mass destruction. All she said was, open my school, give me books. And she succeeded to a degree, but Afghanistan under the Taliban is going back to where it was. They all responded to Imam Hussein's call, and my question is, that was a life well lived. That was a life well lived for Imam Hussain al-Islam. How do we compare? In the interest of time, I'm going to move, and I was told that sometimes I move too fast, but the clock doesn't help me. The clock moves faster than I am, so I will try and slow down and have less slides. But, in the cacophony and the dissonance that we have, the sounds from the TV, the cell phones, Twitter, and all that, are we truly becoming deaf to the sounds of our own heart? Amid all the wars and violence, are we becoming desensitized to our own humanity? We're so busy. Everything is there. You sit in the car, and now you've got big screens even in the cars, so that now even while driving, you get busy doing whatever else. At least there was a time you could get some peace while you were driving and could think about it. Even that luxury is gone. Most of us rush blindly through our days, fall into bed exhausted, wake up next morning to do it all over again. Does that remind you of somebody that you know? Maybe yourself? This is who we are. Our lives are composed of millions of seemingly meaningless moments, and a few sacred moments like this, where we come and spiritually uplift ourselves. We are blessed to have Muharram. We are blessed to have these gatherings, where we are able to at least move away from all that noise that's out there. And yet we still see that we don't leave our cell phones in our pockets. We're still looking at them because, that text must be very important. Let's leave all that. Let's focus on what we have. Let's live in the present. Do you live life, or do you let life happen to you? Are you doing intentional living? We talked about that for a whole lecture. Is your living intentional living? Are you the architect of your life? Purposeful living that we talked about. Is this a life of purpose? Or are you a victim of living that you are now pushed through day in, day out? The precious gift of now. And there's a brilliant book called The Power of Now. I highly recommend that you read that book. The power of being in the moment, the power of now, the gift of now. That sacred moment is what we can really control. Because that second that is gone is not going to come back. If I'm worrying about the future all the time and not giving any time to the present will be gone. As I say, the past is history, the future is a mystery. The now or the present is a gift, and that's why it's called the present, right? The present is what matters. Time is free. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us 86,400 seconds in a day. It's like having a bank account where 86,400 seconds are actually deposited in your account at midnight, and by following midnight, everything clears away. If you had $86,400 in your bank account every day, which is going to be depleted at night at 12 midnight, before it's replenished again, what will you do with those dollars? Will you not invest every penny? What are we doing with time? It is at 86,400 seconds that Allah has given us. Time is free, but it's priceless. You can own it. You can't own it. You can use it. And this is what you do. But, we are into what they call analysis paralysis, too occupied, distracted. We cannot be. Edmund Burke, the British statesman, said, if we are not part of the solution by our apathy, then we could be a part of the problem. This is where we are. So, let me share Hadith Qudsi to lighten this a little bit, and then inshallah we will move on. On the day of judgment, Allah will say, O son of Adam, I fell ill and you visited me not. And the son of Adam will reply that, O Lord, O Allah, how should I visit you when you are the Lord of the worlds? He said, you visited me not. And Allah will say, did you not know that my servant so-and-so had fallen ill and you visited him not? Had you visited him, you would have found me there and you would have visited me. Same thing. O son of Adam, I asked you for food. You fed me not. So I will say, Ya Allah, you are the Razik, you are the one who provides the food. Same answer. That did you not know that so and so was hungry and they asked you for help? Had you fed him, you would have found me, that you would have fed me. And last one, O son of Adam, I asked you to give me a drink and you gave me not to drink. Same answer. Ya Allah, how can I give you drink? You are the sustainer. And the answer will come that there was a thirsty person. If you had given water to that thirsty person, you would have found me there, that you had given me water. This is the meaning as to how to really stand tall. We all want to stand tall. It's our human nature. Well, in helping others, we enhance ourselves. I talked about compassion in the days. For when you light another's path, you can't help but cast light on your own path. You try and lighten somebody's load, and you try and lighten their path. You will realize that no one stands taller in success than the one who bends down to help those in need. Take these words, into your heart and see what we can. Because if we don't, there's a $64,000 question. Two different people will ask two different questions. When a person dies, the family, the friends, the world will say, what is he left behind? That's the question that's asked mostly. What has he left behind? Because he can't take it with him. But the angels will ask, what has he sent forth for the hereafter? And that is a bigger question. What have we sent forth? So, I'd like to, as I promised, with that preamble, talk about 10 lessons that we had said tonight that we learned from Karbala. 10 very specific lessons. And I'll make it quick and we'll kind of go through, because these are very simple lessons, but we need to take these 10 lessons to heart. If we can take these 10 lessons to heart, then all this effort that we have put in, inshallah, will be accepted by Allah. The first one is Tawheed. Imam Hussein showed a true spirit of Tawheed, rising against tyranny in order to reform the mission. His sole purpose was Tawheed, preaching of one God. Number 2, Imam taught us, never allow yourself to be humiliated. Amongst his many speeches, Imam mentions that the authority gave him two choices, humiliation or death. And he said, we do not accept humiliation. So do not allow yourself to be humiliated. Hur taught us that it is never too late to repent. Allah is Ghafurur Rahim. In fact, to lose the hope in the mercy and the forgiveness of Allah is a bigger sin. It's Gunāh Kabira. To lose faith in His ability to forgive one. So one is always hopeful. That doesn't mean that you keep on sinning and say, He will forgive me. True repentance is that you do it and then you do not do it again. And when life is hard, remember that Allah is watching. Imam Hussein came from the house that knew nothing but the pleasure of Allah. And when companion after companion left for the battlefield, they fell in the battlefield, Hussein would utter these words, that it is bearable only because Allah is the witness. So remember, Allah is watching. And then he said, be a free thinker. We learned this from Karbala. He told the soldiers of Yazid that if you do not have any religion, then at least be free, open-minded in your present life. Meaning, think for yourself, what are you doing? Who are you following? This is an incredibly important life lesson for us all. Continue to be free-thinking, open-minded, and reanalyzing. Support and defend the truth. Needless to say, Islam represents the truth in a world of falsehood. Not only did he defend it, but he sacrificed all that he had. In fact, Hazrat Ali Akbar, on the journey as they were coming, as they had left Makkah and were going towards Karbala, Hazrat Ali Akbar asked his father, Are we not supporting the truth? And when Imam Hussain said yes, these are the famous words of Hazrat Ali Akbar. He said, then it makes no difference if death comes to us or we approach death. Others come first. Example of Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam. He was there. He could have drunk all the water that he wanted. He could have gone to battle. No, he went for the water. He thought of others. And feared by the opposing side. In fact, you know that they came and wanted to give a free pass to Hazrat Abbas because there was some relationship there that Hazrat Abbas could be excused from the war. Of course, he was not going to do that. He reached his Furat to fetch the water, yet he did not touch a drop of water. This is a peak of selflessness, reminding us that others always come first. Be patient. Inna Allaha ma'as-sabirin. Those who saw Imam al-Islam on the day of Ashura have reported, the reporters, not one, several reporters who are reporting on the war, have said, we have never seen a man remaining as composed as Imam Hussain was when his relatives and children were being slaughtered before his eyes. Amr bil Maruf and Nahy anil Munkar. Enjoy the good, forbid the evil. An essential pillar of Islam. And we have talked about this. In the speech he declares that the only purpose of reform was not to gain power, it was to preach. It was Islah, and Islam meant Amr bil Maruf and Nahy anil Munkar, enjoying the good, forbidding the evil. Female empowerment. Karbala showed us that after the massacre, it was Bibi Zainab Salamullahi alayha who took the leadership of the remainder of the camp. And she stood firmly in the court of Yazid, delivered a famous speech that put the entire reign and Yazid and everybody else to shame. So, in the end, we say leave a legacy. Jalaluddin Rumi said, and by the way, he's the most well-read poet in the United States today, Rumi. He said, after our death, do not search for us in the tombs of our graveyards of the world. Search for us in the hearts of the people that we inspire. People will remember you for the inspiration that you gave them. And this is one's legacy. So build your legacy by adding some deep value in every encounter, with everyone that you deal with, so this world would be a better place. Mu'mineen, tomorrow we will recite Zayat Ashura, all of us together during the Amal. And we have 100 salutations of Salam and 100 salutations of Lan that we will recite 100 times in the Zayat Ashura. When we are doing that, when we are reciting that, let us not just mechanically follow. When we are cursing the opponents, demonstrate internal revulsion at the worldly desires of your enemies. And when you recite these salutations in Zayat Ashura, then let there be something that's imprinted in our minds as to who am I praising. Because this is the crux of the ziyarah, is tawalla and tabarra. Tawalla is to seek perfection. Tabarra is to flee from imperfection. And these are two concepts. Tawalla and tabarra is not that I'm going to hate so and so and love so and so. Tawalla is to go and seek our own perfection, and tabarra is to move away from any imperfection that we may have. That tawalla and tabarra must be done within me before I try and give land to somebody else. It must be internalized by me. And this indeed is something that we need to imbibe. Well, we've come to the end of this series that we have. Inshallah, tomorrow we will just recite some Masaib of Sham al-Ghariba, being that particular night. But there are lessons to be learned when we also talk about Sham al-Ghariba. Well, tonight we have a choice. We have a choice that we can go back to our routines and default to our habits, or we can embark on a new beginning to strive for an even better rest of the year. You know, in the new year, in the Gregorian New Year, people make New Year's resolutions. Well, our Muharram resolutions need to be on the basis that when I come back in this assembly, in the Majlis of Imam Hussain al-Islam next year, I will have become a better human being than I was before, and that takes everything else. Well, Karbala was not a matter of age or gender. In Karbala, there was those who showed us how to move with Hussein, which is what we've been talking about. Habib in the Mazair, age was not the criteria. The youth of Qasim and honor Muhammad, youth was not the criteria. The bravery of Abbas and Ali Akbar, the criteria was not youth, the criteria was not being male, the criteria was the idea of sincerity and faithfulness. And tonight we remember the innocence of Hazrat Ali Asghar. Yes, Mu'mineen, tonight is a night of the 10th of Muharram, the eve of 10th of Muharram. It's the eve of Ashura. It's a very tragic night, a very sad night. The last night for the 72 martyrs of Karbala. What are those mothers of Karbala telling their beloved children today or tonight, tomorrow they are going to be martyred? They are preparing for jihad. They are preparing to sacrifice their lives. They are preparing them to die. Why? Because they know Hussein is on the right path to save Islam. Let us send our salams to those mothers of Karbala for sacrificing their precious offspring. And like every night, this was the night, the eve of Ashura. Hazrat Abbas was guarding the tents. But where was Hussein? Imam Hussain al-Islam had gathered all his friends, companions in the tent on this night and said, my friends, tonight is the last night. Tomorrow is the day of Ashur. Tomorrow is a day of Shahada, martyrdom. None of will be spared by Yazid's orders. He said, my companions, Yazid is after me. My friends, my companions, you have suffered enough. There's still time to save your lives. Escape in the darkness of the night. I will have no objections. And he turns out the light. After the lights were put up again, anyone could have gone, left Imam Hussain al-Islam. Not one person left Imam Hussain al-Islam at that time. This was the spirit of the true companions of Imam. Not one left, because my fellow Hussainis, they had recognized the truth. Because they knew that Imam Hussain al-Islam was on the right path. They knew that Hussein was going to sacrifice and they were going to sacrifice. And Imam Hussain al-Islam was lucky to be blessed with such companions who were faithful and who were pious. Our greetings on this night to those martyrs of Karbala for their great sacrifice of Islam. Mu'mineen, of course, Imam Hussein tonight, remember, who is going to make the biggest sacrifice. It was a time on the day of Ashur. Honor Muhammad had given their lives. Janab Qasim was trodden to pieces. Abbas was lying on the flanks of River Furat. Ali Akbar's chest was torn open with a spear. Was there anyone else to sacrifice? Time had come for Hussein to go to the battlefield. Hussein gives farewell to everyone with his sword, Zulfikar on his waist. He mounts Zuljana, his horse. And then we know the famous call that reverberates until today, Hal min Nasirin Yansurna. Hussein gives that call. With this call, the grandson of the Blessed Prophet was giving one last chance for Yazid's men because his companions had all died. Who was he calling out? So he was giving them one last chance. Is there a helper who will help me? But he was also giving us a chance. Is there a helper who will help me for until the day of judgment? Anybody who helps, anybody who oppresses is answering to that call. Well, no one answered from the army of Yazid Imam Hussein's call. But there is one infant who answered the call of Imam Hussein. He heard the crying coming from the khaymah, from the tents. And Imam Hussein goes back to the tent, and Bibi Zainab says that when you called out Hal min Nasirin Yansurna, it was Ali Asghar who fell from his cradle. Hussein knew that what Ali Asghar was trying to say. He goes to Umar Rabab and takes Ali Asghar from Umar Rabab, picks up Ali Asghar and whispered in his ear. They say that Ali Asghar stopped crying. He looked at his father and was quiet. He tells Umar Rabab that I am taking Ali Asghar to the battlefield with me so that I can get some water for him. When the army saw, Yazid's army sees, said, look, Hussein is coming with the Quran. He has no one left to help him. Maybe now he's going to use the Quran. Imam Hussein walks to Yazid's soldiers. By moving his abba, he uncovered Hazrat Ali Asghar. He holds Hazrat Ali Asghar high with both hands and says, oh soldiers of Yazid, if you feel that I have offended you, then so be it. But what has this little child done to you? His mother's milk has dried up. He has not had a drop of water for 3 days. He's dying of thirst. I ask you to give some water to this innocent child. Mu'mineen, not one of the Yazid soldiers had that mercy or compassion in their heart. Imam says, maybe you think that when you bring water to this child, that I will drink it too? Well, he put the child on the burning sands of Karbala and say, you come and quench the thirst of this child, Mu'mineen. Nobody came. Imam Hussein al-Islam picks up Hazrat Ali Asghar and says, you are too young to fight with a sword or a spear. Oh my dear little Mujahid, my little soldier, you are the grandson of Ali. Ali Asghar, fight your jihad with your tongue. Ali Asghar sticks out his right tongue and moved it over his dry lips, looking towards Yazid's men. He fought this jihad with his tongue. There was movement in Yazid's camp. They spoke amongst themselves that Hussein is telling the truth. What has this child done to us? Why is he being punished like this? Let us give him some water. Umar ibn Sa'd gets up, gets worried, and he goes on to do what is hard to describe. You know, when Mukhtar actually caught the killer of Hazrat Ali Asghar, Hurmala, Mukhtar asked him a question. He said, Hurmala, did you ever cry? Did you ever feel emotional in Karbala? And Hurmala said, yes. You know, when I was pointing the three-bladed spear towards Hazrat Ali Asghar, in the far distance I saw the curtain of the tent move a little bit. And Hurmala said, I cried at that time, thinking that could that be the mother of this infant? But the shaitan that was within them could not stop them. The dunya that they wanted to have did not stop them. After that, Umar ibn Sa'd orders, and by the way, Hurmala was the best of the archers. Then Hurmala, what are you waiting for? Silence this child. Do you know that this is the grandson of Ali? Hurmala aimed an arrow at Hazrat Ali Asghar, Mu'mineen. I don't have the strength to actually recite anymore to say how this small arrow pierces the neck of this child. A three-arrowed or a three-pronged arrow for a little child. Mu'mineen. The arrow reaches Imam Hussein. The arrow goes through Hussein's arm and lodges in the tiny neck of Hazrat Ali Asghar. Allahu Akbar. Poor Hussein, that father who came to get water for his little child instead of water. Hazrat Ali Asghar gets an arrow on his neck, gently Gently Imam Hussein pulls the arrow from his neck. He looks up at his neck and says, there was a smile on this infant's face, but he could see no more. For a moment, for Imam Hussein, everything went dark. He could not see. There was total silence over Karbala, broken only perhaps by the sound of the gentle waves through Furad. Even the enemy appeared stunned. Imam turns around and now looks at the baby in his arms. He wipes Ali Asgar's blood on his face. Why did he do that, Mu'mineen? Perhaps when he thought of putting that blood on the earth in Karbala, maybe the earth would have said, no, Hussein, do not let Ali Asgar's blood fall on me, on the ground, otherwise crops will never grow on this earth. Perhaps Hussein may have looked at the sky, and again the sky may have said, no, Hussein, do not let the blood gush towards the sky, not a drop of rain will ever come. What does Hussein do? He wipes Ali Asgar's blood on his face, perhaps to show that at the house of Kawsar. Mu'mineen, Imam goes back, tries to go back towards the tents. What face? What could we say to the mother of this infant? Tomorrow we will do the amal and we will say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. 7 times we'll take steps back and forth. 7 times, this is what Imam Hussein did. Finally he reaches a tent. Can you imagine a mother and a father digging a shallow grave for their infant child in the hope that perhaps when the enemies come to take away the heads, which was the custom of the day, Ali Asgar's head would be spared. Alas, that did not happen either. When we saw those heads, it was Ali Asgar's head also which was on the spikes. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. May Allah give us tawfiq to imbibe the spirit of Karbala. May He keep our children safe from enemies. May He give us tawfiq to be those change makers, because like true Hussein is, it is our Lord to do that. And we ask that He gives us tawfiq to try and create the most imperfect society, or the most imperfect society or that we can, because perfect society will come when the Imam comes. So let us create that least, apologies, that least imperfect society that we have. This is within us to create whatever we can do, because perfect society will come when the Zuhur of Imam comes. Thank you for being here for the last 10 days. May Allah accept the azah, may Allah accept all our efforts, and may He give us the tawfiq to become better human beings when we come back to this first azah once again next Muharram. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Walji. Before we do the ziyarah and conclude this session, I'd like to just remind and point out that there was a miscommunication in our announcements. The lecture tomorrow is going to be held at the same time, 9 p.m., not 7 p.m., as it was stated in the flyer that was distributed. At 7 p.m. there is no lecture, I'm repeating again. Tomorrow at 9 p.m. along with the English and the Urdu lectures, the English lecture would start right here in this very hall, to be delivered by Dr. Al-Khoei Walji. Thank you very much. Mutawajjih ziyarah. Muhammad Al-Khoei. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا خيرة من خلق الله ورحمة الله وبركاته، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا سيد الوصيين، السلام عليك يا إمام المتقين ورحمة الله وبركاته، السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي المجتبى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله حسين بن علي بشهيد كربلاء. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليك وعلى أخيك بالفضل العباس وعلى أختك الحوراء زينب وعلى التسعة المعصومين بذرية الحسين. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين زين العابدين. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الباقر. السلام عليك يا جعفر بن محمد الصادق. السلام عليك يا موسى بن جعفر الكاظم. السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى الرضا. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي التقي الجواد. السلام عليك يا علي بن محمد الهادي النقي. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي العسكري. السلام عليك يا حجة بن الحسن يا قائم المرتضى المهدي يا صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا كامة الإيمان. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان. السلام عليكم أهل البيت النبوة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أحسنتم جزاك الله خير. Thank you very much. Thanks.
No, they were in Colombia. They just came here like 4 months ago.